Okay, Assalamu alaikum, my dear colleagues and my seniors. Continuing the session of our urolithiasis, today we will discuss management of stones, endourology. So, endourology is close control manipulation of genitourinary tract for the purpose of diagnosis and therapy. Endourological treatment of upper urinary tract it includes percutaneous nephrolithotomy, retrograde intrarenal surgery, endoscopic combined intrarenal surgery, ECIRS. First of all, we will discuss about the percutaneous nephrolithotomy. PCNL is indicated in venous stones that is in renal pelvis, upper and mid calyx and greater than 20 centimeter in size. It is also indicated in lower pole stones which is greater than 1 centimeter with unfavorable anatomy. Obstruction with peugeot with stone, anatomical consideration horseshoe kidney and glacial diverticulum if there is failed lithotripsy and URS, if there is a stone associated with foreign body that we have seen DJ. Patient choice and desire for one treatment only. About the contraindications, there are absolute contraindications and relative contraindications. Absolute contraindications, obviously, uncorrected bleeding disorders, pregnancy, infection, non-functioning kidney, need for coincidental open procedure. And relative contraindications are patient high risk for anesthesia and anterior calyceal diverticulum. Advantages of PCNL is reduced blood loss, decreased length of hospital stay, reduced analgesia requirement. But also there is some disadvantages, that is the longer operative time, and we need to fragment stone in small pieces and poor visualization in presence of bleeding. Preparation for the patients obviously is complete history, examination, baseline investigation along with blood typing. Counseling is very important. Counseling about post-op stenting, second look procedure, auxiliary procedure and failed procedure could be there. And specifically we need urine culture, coagulation profile, ultrasound obviously of the kidney, X-ray scan, CT scan and differential renal functions. Instruments used, most of it we have discussed in our past sessions. Cystoscope and nephroscope, urethric catheter, access needle, dilator set, guide wire and glide wire, dilator set, implant sheet, lithotripsy device, irrigation system and Nalaton catheter. Steps of surgery are, first of all, we will do cystoscopy and catheterization of ureteric orifice done, usually with 6 FR ureteric catheter, retrograde pylography done and placement of ureteric catheter done. After it, we assess the calyceal anatomy and for which calyx we have to puncture and which position we will go for PCNL. Either prone or supine position. After positioning of patient, establishing of percutaneous axis. I will explain each point in detail. Dilatation of tract, then stone manipulation with fragmentation and extraction, drainage of collection system, then we will locale tamponade of the tract, usually done by nephrostomy tube. There are various positions for PCNL. Prone position, complete supine position, modified Valdivia position, Bart's flank free supine position, split leg position, prone flex position, modified Galdadau Valdia position.
Dr. Mashkoor, can you explain how you make prone position for PCNL? Where are the padding done and which areas need to be considered protected?
The endotracheostomy tube should be protected and head and neck should be secured, and our limbs are supported while changing the position of the patient to prone position.
Where you place pads?
Pads are placed at the hip joint level and shoulder level.
Shoulder. Dr. Zafar? So, you must have seen prone position being made, where they place the pads and how they protect different organs.
We put the pad in the lower abdomen region. I mean the pelvis region. उसका रीजन ये है कि ताकि जो गट है वो नीचे हो जाए.
You basically support the bony prominences, the lower chest and the pelvis, and then apart from that, you have to protect the male genitalia, in female patient the breast, and you have to make sure that the toes, they are not on the table, directly on the table, they have to be supported. Pressure point and bony prominence. Okay. Dr. Salim, how you made a supine position for PCNL?
Sir, in supine position, we change, we flex his leg and the patient's leg.
Which leg is flexed? Ipsilateral or contralateral?
Sir, ipsilateral.
No, it's contralateral. Ipsilateral remains straight. Okay, where you place the pad?
Sir, the pad is placed at the flank.
Dr. Rafi?
Behind flank.
Where the pad is placed? In ipsilateral flank, in the ipsilateral flank. Okay, so one leg, the contralateral leg is flexed, and on the lithotomy pole, the ipsilateral leg is straight and slightly medially rotated. Okay. Move on.
Okay. There are pros and cons of both prone and spine position. There is a comparison. In prone position, we will get the broad surface area for anatomical posterior puncture and easy access to posterior callus. And usually the tract length will be short, wider space for instrument manipulation, access to upper calyx, and there is option of bilateral simultaneous PCNL. As far as spine PCNL, one main advantage is that you can approach if you are going for simultaneously ureteroscopy. So this position will favor. No need for patient repositioning, possible shorter surgical time, decreased irrigation pressure, possible benefit for infection, low risk for infection, better stone fragments wash out, optimal CVS and airway control, so your anesthetic will be happy. Surgeon comfort may be seated. He can be seated.
But what are the limitations of supine position? Dr. Najam?
Accessing calyces.
Which calyx?
Upper.
You cannot access upper calyx. And you can also, you may not be able to access posterior calyx if you have made a track from anterior calyx. This is the limitation. Okay.
Okay, then we will access into collecting system under ultrasound guidance, fluoroscopic guidance, or advanced guidance CT or MRI or through laparoscopy. About the puncture techniques, there are bull's eye technique, or you can say it needle of eye technique. What happens here, we puncture at 30 degree and we can adjust the C-arm medio-laterally and cephalo-caudally.
Can anyone explain this bullseye technique or triangulation technique, how this is done? What are the advantages or disadvantages? Dr. Rashid? Dr. Rashid.
Sir, in bull's-eye technique, basically we do puncture at 30 degree, and then we rotate the CR to 0 degree to confirm the exact position of the puncture side. While in triangular technique, we do puncture at 0 degree, and then we rotate at 30 degree to confirm the position of this puncture site. And nowadays we combine these both, bullseye and triangular technique.
Is there any difference between the two in terms of outcome or ease of puncture?
No, it is.
There isn't any difference. So basically, when you are trying to puncture a calyx, there are three planes to consider. One is the anterior posterior, there is cephalocaudal, and the third is mediolateral. Right? What you do in bullseye technique, you rotate the C-arm at 30 degree toward yourself, and you see the calyx as a dot. And within that dot, you move your needle with the hub of the needle in direct line with the shaft. So what you see is only a dot with a center, more darker area of the shaft within it. That's why it is called bullseye technique. So you move in until you feel that you have pierced the kidney. This takes care of the cephalocaudal orientation and mediolateral orientation. Now, in order to know how deep you are or how anterior posterior you are, you move the C-arm back to 0 degree, and then you move your needle until you enter the black area of the retrograde pyelogram. This is simple bullseye technique. What you do in triangulation technique, you keep your C-arm at 0 degree, you go inside the black area, the black calyx, and once you feel that you have entered into the collecting system, you move your C-arm toward yourself, that is laterally and cephalate, lateral and cephalate, right? In this plane, you take care of the mediolateral orientation. You move inside that black area, you can see in this, inside the calyx, and then you move your C-arm back to 0 degree and then medially away from yourself, 30 degree away from yourself. In this plane, you take care of the cephalocaudal orientation. And once the needle appears in the black area in all the three planes, that is caudal, mediocaudal and lateral, then your needle is inside the calyx. This is a bit more complicated. That's why bullseye is much more easier to do.
Sir, I have a question. In bullseye technique, is it only specific for the upper calyx? And second thing is, we have to rotate the fluoro towards 90 degree or 30 degree?
Toward 30 degree yourself. This is the diagram. And it can be done in all the galaxies, not just one.
First of all, we have to understand that what is bullseye and what is eye of the needle technique. So both are different. We think that both are the same. When you are, the technique is eye of the needle and triangulation, and the puncture is bullseye. Why bullseye? Do you understand why you call that bullseye? You need to understand that. Ji Arsalan sir.
We can appreciate the tip of the needle, and that is like dot-like.
Yes.
We appreciate it, and that's why we call it bullseye.
Yes, and whenever we are puncturing the upper calyx, so we always perform bullseye, because you cannot do any other technique. It is very difficult because you have pleura ahead, above. So you have to go straight in. Once you're going straight in like this at 90 degree, that when you see on the fluoroscopy, it looks like bullseye. And when you are puncturing a lower calyx, you can perform bullseye, but you need to evaluate that you're going to anterior calyx or posterior calyx. That is very important. So because of that reason, we don't puncture straight above the calyx. We put our knife a bit below the calyx after seeing respiration, and then at an angle we go, and then we try to make it bullseye. Like we go inside like this, and then straight. So in upper calyx you cannot do that because there's pleura above. So you can puncture it with bullseye.
Madhusri, can you ask your friends in Sakkar, they want to do introduce themselves and just participate in this discussion? Maybe you can ask GM to say something.
So, Dr. GM, do you have any opinion about how to puncture the kidney?
Usually in upper calyx, I used to puncture. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hello?
Yes, yes, we can.
We used to puncture with needle eye technique, which is we usually call bullseye technique, and this is very rightly said by Dr. Harris that we have to go very straight, and we identify that we are straight by the tip, only the imaging of the tip of that needle. If needle is slightly horizontal in the direction, it will not be like look like a tip. So we have to consider it. For going straight, we have to confirm that we are going straight by visualizing only the tip or the eye of that needle, pedal of the needle which is in our hand. So this is very much important to go straight to avoid injury into the collateral organs like we can damage pleura or we can damage gallbladder in right side or anything else like the pancreas in the left side. So for going straight is very much important to go in proper direction. And usually triangular technique we encounter when we puncture the middle or lower calyx, but we also can go with bullseye technique in any calyx. This is my experience, and this all scenario is different in supine. So for supine puncture we have to consider many different things, anatomical landmarks in our body.
Right.
And one more thing I want to clear here for the application of pads in the prone position. They are usually used to make the patient comfortable in ventilation. We allow the abdomen free from lower side, not to prevent any viscera, but we have to make sure that the patient in prone position should ventilate properly. We give space for diaphragm and gut to move freely, so ventilation should go freely. This is the main aim of applying pad in prone position.
And a bit about supine punctures, that either you are above the kidney, either you are in the kidney, or either you are below the kidney. So you need to know your landmarks. And a lot of people say that we are poking into kidney in and out. And when I was at a stone conference in Islamabad, a very big name of surgery was performing supine PCNL, and he was doing the same thing. Because in this technique in supine, you don't have any 3D access to anything. Either you are above the kidney, either you are in the kidney, or either you are below the kidney. But there is a twist in the story that there is an anterior calyx and a posterior calyx. So you need to evaluate pre-operatively that how complex that stone is. I was performing a PCNL with Dr. Bilal, and we did a supine PCNL, we cleared the stone, we took out the nephroscope, there was still stone present. We were going up and down, finding that stone, we couldn't. So then I took a needle, and below that sheet, I put a needle and placed it and felt the stone with that needle, and that kidney was moving and stone was moving. I could feel that stone. So we made another track in supine PCNL like this, simultaneously 2 tracks parallel. And we removed that stone, and everyone was astonished that what happened. So anterior and posterior calyceal anatomy you should be knowing. And that is why at our stone clinic we have started getting some CT urograms for complex renal stones, and now people are thinking about scoring systems and all. So we have to make a pre-operative evaluation that what is going on. The best judge is how to go about is a retrograde study.
Okay, so dilatation of the tract achieved by 3 standard techniques: semi-rigid implants dilatation, sequential metal alkane dilatations, and one-shot single balloon dilatation. These are the alkane dilators.
So, Dr. Sfyan in Sakkar, can you tell us what are the different sizes of alkane dilators which we use, commonly use? From where they start and how much they go? Yes, we can hear you.
6F to 9F.
Yes. 9 then? 12,
Keep on adding 3.
9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 21. Okay. आगे चलो.
How much? To how much you will dilate? 40, 50?
27.
So you need to know that how much you have dilated and what is the sheet you have got. The sheet and the size of nephroscope are not the same. Sheet is 1 or 2 FR larger than the nephroscope. So you should be very clear about the sizes of these things.
This is a nephroscope.
So this is a nephroscope. Who will tell what are the different parts of this very important instrument? अच्छा वहाँ से पूछो. वहाँ पे डॉक्टर मकबूल हैं. डॉक्टर फयाज. Dr. Fayaz Chauhan, can you explain what are the different parts of this thing in front of you?
So we see your smile, Fayaz. Just to speak up. You see now that the boundaries of time are over. You can see you, you can see us.
The telescope है, distant part है, और the channel
Is this?
channel है.
Yes, irrigation channel है.
I guess that will be too hi-fi for you. We can ask some senior over here that what is the offset? This is
Farra.
frequently asked question by the previous examiners. What is the offset in this URS and nephroscope?
Offset eyepiece.
Sorry, sir, I don't know.
Dr. Naseem. Dr. Nareg is hiding behind.
Whenever we daily use these instruments. These are present in our theaters. The sheets, the nephroscopes, the ureteroscopes. Kindly hold them in your hand, see their dynamics, that what is going on in this dynamic instrument, and go and read about it. You have to be enthusiastic to know these things because things have changed drastically. I still remember when I was a resident of urology. So first time I got to know that resectoscope is a double sheet when I was sitting in my exam. So you people are lucky that a lot of people are there to guide and these forums are over here. So now today go and whichever instrument you hold in your hand, go and read about it. What are the dynamics of that instrument? ये किसी को idea है offset क्या होता है?
Dr. Lareb. Dr. Usman Jr.
There are two types of scope, actually, with inline eyepiece and offset eyepiece. This one is the offset eyepiece. Here we can see that the black lens is outside and providing a straight channel for the rigid instrument to pass to gain access to the kidney.
So when you see a cystoscope, the camera or the eyepiece is straight line with the shaft of the scope, but this is different. Right? So this is an offset eyepiece system. Okay. What is this? Dr. Mashkur? This is just the tip of nephroscope. So at the tip of nephroscope, there are two things. One is the optical system, which lies slightly above, and then there is a working channel. This working channel, through this working channel, water comes in and it goes out around the scope, and you introduce different instruments through this scope. What is the common size of this working channel? Three FR, 3 to 4 FR. In most instruments, the size of working channel, either it is URS or nephroscope, is about 3 FR. So you cannot enter an instrument larger than 3 FR into your PCNL system.
Yes, and now new instruments are coming and it is written on the instrument that how much FR, two things you can pass, one thing you can pass, there is a round number written on it. And if you see that thing, you know that in UR especially, you know that how much FR you can place through that.
So, just for the sake of understanding and putting some excitement into the subject, you see, what is our intention as scientists and student of sciences? We must know our instruments, and we must be excited by our instruments. We must take some kind of anything which elates you whenever you see something which is of a very high engineering model. So these are all very high engineering mathematical models that we see in front of us. For instance, a lens, a rod lens, or a fiber optic. So these are the things that one has to know if one has to use them. How we can impress you, the students and the juniors, to understand this subject and as part of learning is to make it a compulsory station question for somebody to appear in exam and pass through. So we are making this a necessary talks station where we will be asking you these kind of things. For instance, this picture, the simple picture, will come in front of you and you have to answer many questions. For instance, we can place any fiber and then we'll ask question what kind of a fiber it is, whether it's a fiber which has got a hollow internal diameter, how you measure the internal diameter, how the light is transmitted from one end to the other. Are there any different lenses placed at different intervals within a kind of a rod? So these are the things which will appear in very near future. So please get yourself accustomed to and yourself very much in ease with all your instruments that you use or handle. Otherwise, you will be missing a lot, because this is a compulsory sort of a question in all the international exams. There is a question which relates to cutting edge technology. So in order to move from this point to something called cutting edge technology, we have to introduce many steps. So these are the initial steps. For instance, Elkan dilator, how is it different from any other dilator? Is there anything which is increasing or decreasing the coefficient of friction, for instance? So these are the questions which will come before you. So please get along with it. Do understand the physics around it and the material which you use. Maybe it is compatible with biology, maybe it is incompatible with biology. So many different questions will appear in front of you. Science will not remain the same. Science is there, but I think the third world and the third world students, they are not very much excited by this kind of a science, which is material science.
Okay, then we will get fragmentations of stone through intracorporeal lithotripsy. In that we have options of holmium yak laser lithotripsy, pneumatic lithotripsy, ultrasonic lithotripsy, and new entity trilogy, in which there is a electromagnetic impactor with ultrasonic energy instruction all in one probe.
So just to ask my friend there in front of us in Sakkar, Fayyaz, what's the difference between ultrasonic and pneumatic? Or why these two terms are different? Lithotripsy is the common factor between the two. What's the difference between, or what does they tell us, or what they do tell us, pneumatic and ultrasonic? इनका मतलब
ultrasonic waves are used and pneumatic waves like impacted waves.
What is this PNEU means? Pneumothorax क्या होता है? Pneumatic क्या है? नहीं बोले है क्या? It denotes what?
related to that: air, wind, pneumothorax, air and thorax, air.
So where we use compressed air or compressed gas, it is pneumo, right? Whether this is compressed within the chest, then it becomes pneumothorax. If it is compressed within a cylinder and you use it for the breakage of a stone, then it becomes a pneumatic energy for lithotripsy. Same goes with ultrasonic. आप ultrasound इस्तेमाल करते हैं for diagnosis. But if you increase the frequency, then it becomes high frequency ultrasound. You can use it, you can target it, you can focus it to a very minute point. Its capacity to cause damage increases rather than giving you a picture. Okay. So please do understand all these terminologies, otherwise you won't be excited again.
And a few times you have the URS with a probe in your hand and you are pressing the pedal and there is only air coming out and the litho class is not working with that jackhammer effect. And the reason is that there is a machine behind which is creating that air system, and you need to be having that working fine with all those probes connected. So today when you go to the theater, or anybody who's using a URS, go and see that mechanism, what is there. It is present in every theater where you have to perform this pneumatic lithotripsy.
Okay. About the post-PCNL tube drainage, the decision to place a tube should be individualized. In cases with more than 2 access tracts, infective stone, mostly staghorn stones, when there is significant intraoperative bleeding, collecting system perforation, where a second look is anticipated, significant extravasation of contrast, and early in learning curve.
There is a thing as written significant intraoperative bleeding. So our concept of placing a tube in this case is to create a little bit of tamponade at the initial stage, and then if that bleeding continues, the clots can be drained outside that system and that system doesn't become infected. This is a very wrong concept that nephrostomy डाल दें बहुत ज़्यादा bleeding हो रही, bleeding रुक जाएगी. क्योंकि what we have done is we are placing a sheet of 28 FR and we are placing a tube of 14 FR, 16 FR maximum. So those 10 FRs are still remaining over there. So the main function of this nephrostomy tube in a bleeding case is that post-operatively that bleeding settles. And another misconception is that this tube is inside and the tube is causing bleeding, that it is irritating the mucosa and all. But first of all, you have to rule out AVM, that there is no AVM. Then you have to rule out infection, because a lot of cases we see infective stones and we don't give proper antibiotics for long term in those cases. They are discharged, they come back to the ER with gross hematuria. You don't find anything, you go for a CT angiogram, you don't find anything. So in those patients, you hydrate and give antibiotics so that post-operative bleeding settles. So you have to think about infection as well in these cases.
So to reduce the blood loss and parenchymal damage, there are some modifications made in PCNL, and that is basically depends on size of tract. Standard PCNL is we will have 22 to 30 FR dilatation, mini PCNL 14 to 20 FR, ultra mini PCNL 11 to 13 FR, and micro PCNL 4.8 FR. The difference is that in a standard PCNL we will get high stone clearance rate, but there is a percent of blood transfusions. And in mini PCNL same is there, but reduced percent of blood transfusion. In ultra mini PCNL we can use only laser, and micro PCNL no blood transfusion reported, but we can use here only laser.
This is a very important slide because it is not only giving you the clear picture of the whole horizon of stone fragmentation and the technology that is available, but it also impresses upon you into certain other areas. For instance, if you go towards micro PCNL, which is like less than 1.5 centimeter stone, then you are actually overlapping into the realm of ESWL, right? So then there is no harm in having a lot of different technologies and different ways of dealing with the stone. It's again emphasizes one point, and that is every patient will not be for any technology. You have to select a correct patient for a correct technology or correct way of fragmentation. You cannot have, for instance, standard PCNL for stones less than 1.5 centimeter. That would increase the burden on the service, as well as it will not be scientific. So if you understand the whole subject and the whole philosophy behind it, then you will pick up a person with, say, 1 centimeter stone and let that stone be taken out by nature on its own through ESWL rather than through micro PNL. So this discussion has to be there, whether one thing is proper for a patient or not. And it makes, again, the winner would be the patient, because
as Dr. Asad said, I totally agree. And you cannot directly perform micro PCNL for 1.5 centimeter stone in a developing world. Yes, in the developed world, they are using single-use scopes and everything is commercialized over there. But in our setup, we have to think that which armamentarium we can use and we should be using. But a bit about micro PCNL, these things and FURS, flexible URS, are mainly for stones which are not coming out through ESWL, and they are hard stones. They are not fragmentable, or they have some calyceal abnormality. They are in a diverticulum. The angle is very tilted. It cannot come out through ESWL. So why puncture with a standard PCNL? On Saturday we see patients. So we have a discussion with Dr. Mudassir that stone is small. So why we place 24 FR for 1.5 centimeter? So in those cases we can use a mini PCNL, which is available over here. 14 FR pediatric. The only problem in that is that we don't have a suction in that. So you can wash that, you can hydrate the patient, you can remove the clot with the forceps, and you can fragment the stone easily, just like the normal PCNL, and then remove it. So we have gone till 14, but ideally 4.8 should be there as well.
And the bottom line should be that the patient should not be allowed to have residual stones and go home. You should not be satisfied with something called a residual stone. There has to be a stone-free patient. So even if there is a stone in the lower calyx and it is not obstructing, it is not causing pain, you can't just leave it. Why anything? Because now technology has gone to such an extent where you can clear it off. If pathology is there, then that pathology is there for us to clear it off rather than just to leave it and ask the patient to bear the burden.
And you can, there's no ego in PCNLs. People have got ego that I'll remove all stones and the kidney starts bleeding and all. If you think that there's large bulk, you can do a multi-track PCNL. You should know your limit, how much water you have used, how much fluid is going to the patient, how much infection you are creating, and is it safe for the patient or not. And you can do a relook PCNL after some time. We have done it. There was tag on stone. We could see that stone, and it was very difficult for us to stop at that moment because the stone was in front, but a lot of time was used. So we called it a day. We placed a nephrostomy. After 1 week, 10 days, we went back again. We made patient stone free. Sandwich therapy can be used. So stones can be fragmented and then removed with PCNL as well, relook PCNL. So a lot of things can be done. We have to be enthusiastic, but we have to keep the safety of the patient should be given first priority.
And again, we must give credit to one of our senior colleagues, Dr. Mahesh Desai Sahab, because he was the one from this part of the world who actually changed this mindset. and he challenged it that why shouldn't we go for stone-free status rather than just asking our patients to take along anything which is not obstructing. So I think from just another, say, in our neighbors, there is a person who has changed the whole subject.
And he has changed the dynamics, and now people are thinking about it. Previously, people used to say, okay, if there is a 0.5 centimeter stone or 1 centimeter stone non-obstructing, leave them alone, let's see how they... But he has changed the dynamics. And we were lucky to have him over here, sitting on this seat over here in 2015. And I asked him that I am enthusiastic about multiple punctures, so what is your take on it? So he said, I had a recurrent stone forming patient and I punctured that patient 26 times to make him stone free. At regular, he used to come with a stone every year with a large stone, and he did more than 20 punctures in that kidney, and the kidney was functioning properly. So we puncture once or twice and we say, oh, बहुत damage हो गया. So you have to make that patient stone free.
We are a bit short of time, so be quick.
So about the complications, most clear complications is bleeding and sepsis. Source of bleeding can be major vessel, lobar vessels, arteriovenous malformation, aneurysm. And procedure-related complications are can be loss of tract, extravasation, intraperitoneal or extraperitoneal, rupture of collecting system. Some organs might get injury, lung, it can hemothorax, hydrothorax, clonic injury, liver injury, and a splenic injury. And about post-op care, there is routine care like other anesthetized patients. Resume oral when fully awake. Provide adequate analgesia. Declam nephrostomy is clamped. Mobilize early. And if there is a tubeless PCNL, patient could be discharged on the same day. And then day one, we will get ultrasound for collection of residual stone, X-ray chest, and about to remove nephrostomy. If there is no hematuria, nephrostomy can be removed after 24 to 48 hours. And second is clinical method that we claim nephrostomy and observe for hydronephrosis or pain, then we'll go for nephrostomy remover and antegrade. Follow-up should be scheduled about 2 weeks post-op, and treatment outcome assessed with a KUB radiograph or additional imaging, and important is to retrieve stone analysis and discuss options for future stone prevention. Okay.
If there are more slides, then we can take the subject later.
Okay.
Because we need a lot of discussion on all these things. I think they are also stuck because they have a big clinic ahead in Sakkar, and we also have got a lot of work to do here. So this marks the beginning of a new, I think, chapter in our educational activities, and that is the conference on Zoom. So we are now connected to Sakkar. So anybody who is a resident or a senior or a junior fellow anywhere in our satellite centers, we are now connected. So we'll keep this connection intact, and I think for Registrar Forum as well as for tumor boards, later we can expand this discussion to our other colleagues also from Nawabshah, from Ladkana, and from centers in Upper Sindh and also in Lower Sindh. So let's begin talking to each other and discussing problems. So this is my inclination and personal belief that nobody will come for our own guidance. We have to guide our own selves. So let's talking and start thinking and making waves for newer ideas if they suit us. So any comment from your side and your side?
Dr. Haris.
Haris.
I am a technology freak, so I always favor these things. We were performing a round in 2015, and at that time WhatsApp and all these things were not common, so we performed first round on Skype, we had a team and we took a picture of that as well. So these things, you cannot shy away from these things. You have to embrace them, and this is a very big achievement, and I'm very happy that we are connected with our other center, and we can see all those faces which we couldn't see over here. So so it is a very big achievement, and it should continue. It's a very nice thing.
So later, maybe GM, with your presence over there and with Sabur and others, that gives me an opportunity of asking, again, you're all my juniors and my friends, to have something which is out of the box. And that thing which is out of the box is the theatre. So if you have got any case which is in the theatre, you want to discuss it in real time, this is the opportunity. You can have it. You can have the same camera over there. You can just blow up that picture, and that picture will be in front of us here. So we can have a discussion and whatever, right? Let's think about it. GM, you are there in very peaceful atmosphere. You can think a lot. That's my belief. So thinking, start coming out of something which is hazy.
A nice day.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much over there.
Thank you.
Hafiz.